that there is sort of a rethink of all the fundamental technology assumptions. But what's the reality here?
Yeah, no, I think there is a rethink, but I think it starts with culture. We start with trust, then it goes to culture, and I think the reason we're trying to democratize this is because I think your own associates and those you work with have to have the trust as well. And you have to have a culture of not just putting technology to solve a problem, but fundamentally, and I think I heard Pat say this, transform your entire business model. Beyond, you got to think about the art of the possible here. And if you're just doing this incrementally, which I think we have historically done a lot of very incremental things, and I don't think it works. And so, you know, as I think about the buckets, we talked a lot about consumer. There's a huge opportunity inside of our enterprise and inside of the business of healthcare to use AI and other technology to simplify. And great examples. We have thousands and thousands of pages of policy documents, claim rules, that we have an opportunity to simplify those and get those in the hands of clinicians very quickly, and that's something we've done. And it's great for also for the care practitioners, because they don't need to be spending their time here. They need to be spending their time in clinical. You know, we've been working with the EMR vendors to do that. So a great example, you know, we had over 157 million clinical records transferred to us for about 27 million patients last year. Great example. I don't need faxes, and I laughed about this, but I still get faxes. In this day and age, we still get faxes. We're trying to eliminate that. So it's about workflow change, and it's about integrating this, and then being able to use that information to simplify the process. And those are just very, I think, practical ways that our the business part of healthcare needs to improve.
Tell us the truth. Do you have a fax machine in your office?
I do not have one. I have a printer that could fax, but I don't have a fax machine.
So, if I could just stay on generative AI, you mentioned problems with hallucinations. There's also issues with bias. And that seems to impinge on the trust issue, because there will be a fear that people will have that, you know, oh, my claims might get denied because of some biased AI. And so what's your approach there?
Yeah, so that's an area that we are incredibly cautious about. In terms of setting the responsible AI framework that I said, nothing goes into production without complete and detailed testing and documentation. And honestly, I would say on the claims rule engine, we still have humans making the final decision. So it's human-centered design on it. Same thing with clinical. No AI is making a clinical decision. So what it is doing really in the early stages is it is taking all of the policies, all of the latest data, all of the information, and providing recommendations and information for the clinician and the claim processor to do that better. And on the claim side, it's really good because we get a lot of bad data in. So we can get that data electronically, and we can get that with the right fields filled in, then we have a huge opportunity to pay it right and stop the back and forth that goes on. So I think the early stages of that are huge amounts of improvement. You know, that 10x kind of improvement is there. I mean, we're seeing 20 to 25% improvement in productivity already because of that. So we need to get that at scale. I mean, we operate at giant scale, and so we want to make sure that we roll that out. And another area that I would point to, again, probably less sexy than some of the things we talk about, but it's provider data. So all of you go on and try to pick a care provider that's part of a network, as part of your insurance program, or you're trying to find someone who matches your preference. So making sure that data is clean and right is really important. And we spend a lot of energy making sure that, and then constantly updating that through AI and other means, and also being able to personalize it. So when you want someone in a certain area that's a high-performing provider with certain outcomes, certain availability, then we can personalize that to you as opposed to you trying to find it. So I think those are less, you know, out there kind of things and very practical applications for consumers and care providers to improve just the working environment.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One of the conversations we've had with some of your technical staff, while the generative AI models do exhibit biases, they are also surprisingly effective at reviewing and spotting biases and biased decisions made by others, whether AI or human. And so the potential to have it as another tool in the arsenal to, let's say, look at data sets and see if there are biases or to spot them or look at decisions,
right.
I think has been one of the more interesting things that I know there's some good experimentation going on.
Yeah, and I also think it's an ability to add new data sets that we haven't historically captured even in the EMR. So things around social drivers, food, healthy food, prescriptions for that, other pieces of people's lives that drive depression or drive, a lack of compliance with their current protocols. And I think that's beginning to open up, and I think that's a huge opportunity. And then for us, we use it to then connect people to those social services. So it's, we know that 80% of people's health doesn't happen in the physician's office. It happens in your life. It happens in your community. And so being able to take all that information in addition to what's happening, with your medical protocol, your social behavioral, bring it together and then, have recommendations for how do we intervene sooner, how do we help you, how do we help your caregivers, I think is really exciting. And we've built, we're doing like 4,000 of these a day with our clinicians, sending them what we call these whole health interventions for them to basically meet with the patient and help them identify that so they don't have to do it up front and think about it. I think those are real opportunities.
Now, I've kind of gone overboard focusing on generative AI. There are other technologies that are really important, and when we're talking especially health data, there's the whole issue of interoperability. And this has been a huge push by your whole organization. We've tried in our cloud, actually not just in our cloud, but working with the other major cloud vendors to try to be as supportive as possible. Are we making progress on interoperability?
Slow. I think we're making some. I think we have a huge opportunity to accelerate it. I think that is sort of embedding it across the industry, and I'm actually quite encouraged. We participate in a number of industry forums. I think with the EMR vendors, there's nothing proprietary about how we should be sharing data back and forth, particularly clinical records. We're all doing it. We all have to do it for regulatory as well as clinical purposes. The ability to do that across everything, I think, is a big opportunity. So we're meeting in groups, we're talking about it. I think we've made some progress, but I think we still have a big opportunity to continue to do that.
Okay. So I'm going to change the subject a little bit now and shift to this relationship. It's actually kind of underlined almost everything you said here today, the relationship between payer and provider. And that, of course, has been evolving a lot. It's actually gotten more diverse, more, in a way, harder to understand. So can you demystify this, or at least what is the element's view of the best working relationship between provider and payer?
Yeah, I don't know if I can demystify it. That's a tall task, but I'll try in terms of our perspective. I mean, we think care providers, I'll go back to the